Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is John Viglotti, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for our next presentation from Kuya Silver. Please note you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome David Stein. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer of Kuya Silver Corp, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol KUYAF and on the CSE under the symbol KUYA. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So we are a silver producer, and let's talk about it. There's our disclaimers. This presentation, by the way, is available on our website, which is www.kuyasilver.com. Great place to start and find more information about us. If I don't cover everything you need in the next 20 minutes or so. So maybe I'll look over there. Okay, so we have two principal projects in Kuya. Now, our flagship is our Bethania mine. It's a silver mine in Peru that is just started production. So I'm going to spend most of the time talking about that. We do have a second project in Northern Ontario, Canada. It's an exploration project in a historic silver cobalt mining camp, which is called the Silver Kings Project. We've had some tremendous technical success there, and we are actually drilling that property right now. Now, we've developed a business strategy that builds on some of the successful silver companies that emerged in the early 2000s, which was to take a single high-grade, low tonnage, but where the ore is very valuable. And those types of mines exist in places like Mexico and Peru, where we are. Take that kind of an asset, develop it, make it better, expand production. And with that, you can grow organically. You can start to, once we start making more money at the mine, or significant cash flows, which we think we'll be doing by next year, we can start to reinvest in exploration. With that, we grow our resources. With more resources, we go back and we expand the mine. And we can do this sort of organic growth cycle that very few mining companies can really achieve, especially at our size. Most organic growth in mining happens with really big companies that have huge capitalizations. Well, we can do it thanks to really the geology and the types of mines that we're targeting. Now, I'm an ex-analyst, a stock analyst myself. I used to cover gold and silver mining companies for many years in the early 2000s to 2009. And so I made this slide really for myself. I wanted to see, why are some of our peers so valuable and why are some of them not? And so I plotted EBITDA on one axis against the market cap or the enterprise value on the other axis. And what came out of this analysis is a number of really interesting observations. It's really important when you're thinking about investing in Kuya. Number one, there are only 10 publicly traded companies that get more than 50% of their revenue from silver. Most silver is produced as a byproduct. A lot of companies that might even market themselves as silver companies are actually gold companies or something else. So when you actually look at the numbers, who's producing more than 50% of their revenue comes from silver? Who's really giving you silver exposure if you're bullish on silver? There's only 10 companies, and actually 2 of them have been taken over in the last few weeks. So there's going to be 8. Then there'll be 9, which is going to be Kuya. So why that's important is because when investors do get more bullish on silver, and we really haven't seen that movement into silver equities yet, although the silver price is doing very well, the investors have very few companies to choose from. That means a lot of money will funnel into very few companies that will drive their valuations up a lot. You can already see, we've got a company there trading at 78 times EBITDA. All right, well, maybe they've got some big growth story, exploration story, fair enough, but still 78 times, that's pretty expensive. So that's what we aspire to. Now, if you look at our numbers, what we're supposed or what we should be producing from the Bethania mine when we get up to production next year, rough numbers, 1.5 million ounces silver equivalent. We are a real primary silver producer with about 75% of our revenue is going to come from silver. Our costs should be around $15 all in sustaining costs by the time we get per ounce, by the time we get into full production next year. So on that basis, we're making, call it $15 margin. You get to about $20 million a year in EBITDA using those rough numbers. With that, you know, if we get the lowest multiple of our peers, we'd be 160 million market cap. If we get the average multiple of our peers, we'd be more like a $700 million market cap. Today, our market cap, these are all US dollars. Today, our market cap is somewhere around 30 million. So you're looking at a multi-bagger opportunity. If we deliver, and if that gets recognized in the market, there's huge upside for us, which is why we're doing it. So, but there's more. We've got the exploration side as well. So we really can tell a multi-pronged story. And this is our kind of subway line here of two tracks. The one track, the red track, is exploration. We can add value at every stop on the tracks here. The yellow is our production and development and production. So we are in production at Bethania. We're going to ramp it up to 350 tons per day. That's happening over the next 12 months or so. And there's many more things we can do to make it bigger and better and more profitable over the coming years. Same thing with the exploration side. In the red tracks, we're exploring two different projects, Bethania and our second project, Silver Kings, as well, which we eventually do want to put into production. So that's why you see that on the bottom there as well. Okay, now let's talk about Bethania. It's in Peru. It's in a great part of Peru, which is the central Peru. You can see Lima right there. So we're about 170 kilometers as the crow flies, I guess, 120 miles. And we are up high in the mountains. Lima's on the coast. So there are a few switchbacks to get to our project, but you can actually drive there. There is a pretty big city that's only about a 3-hour drive away called Huancayo. That's, you know, where we stay when we take guests up there. And if any of you ever come to visit us, you know, there'll probably be a night or two in Huancayo on the way and on the way back. But we're in a great area with you can see lots of mines there. I just put some of the more well-known publicly traded companies that have had mines in the area. There's actually way more than this. It's kind of a silver lead zinc belt that runs along the same direction as the coastline there. Now, our project is 4,300 hectares, although we are applying for more right now. Now, you can see in that little rectangle is the original mining concession. That's what we originally acquired from Peruvian private owners 4 years ago. And we've added all this other land around it, which is really creates a whole district around the mine for us to do more exploration, ultimately drill rough resources, and ultimately have several mines here, all feeding a centralized plant. That would be the longer term plan. But the existing Bethania mine is fantastic. We know there's a lot of silver there already. We've done, you know, some drilling there since we've owned it, but there's much more to do. So the entire resource that we have today is just on the western third of that property where it says Bethania mine. We know there's more silver veins off to the east because we've found them at surface, sampled them, mapped them, etc. So we know the property itself, the Bethania property itself, is going to get way bigger, but there's also all these other opportunities within, call it 2 to 3 miles away from the mine. Here's our resource. I won't dwell on the numbers. If you guys are numbers guys, technical guys, you guys are welcome to look at the presentation in more detail. We've got about 14 million ounces equivalent, we call it. Of that, about 10 million ounces is pure silver. So that's the silver that we have. We also have a little bit of lead, zinc, copper, and gold that makes up the difference there. We mine it all. We produce concentrates. We sell those concentrates. We get back, you know, the value based on what metals are contained in those concentrates, which again is mostly silver. Here's a long section across the entire property. just the Bethania mine property. So all the mine workings that we inherited are all in this red triangle there. That's where our resource is. And it's open at depth. So we have not done anything deeper than really what you see here in terms of drilling, although all the veins extend deeper, we know that. And then along strike here, you've got a number of other veins on the other side of this hill, which we call the hilltop zone, that really look to be an extension of the mine off to the east. So that could double the strike length of these veins off to the east, still open to the east even further. Everything's open at depth. So this is something that could, double at depth, double again along strike. You're looking at something that could be many, many tens of millions of ounces without ever leaving the original mine property. That tiny little postage stamp that I showed you on the first slide there a few slides ago. Now, in terms of our development plan, we've really been putting all the dominoes in place to start production over the last year. So that's all happened now. We got some financing late last year. We got Trafigura, the second biggest metals trading company in the world, to buy all of our concentrate for the first 4 years or so. So we did a deal with them. They came in as an equity investor in the company. So they're one of our biggest shareholders now. We've got very low costs, we expect. That's really driven by the high grade of the mine. And as I said before, we expect to produce somewhere close to 1.5 million ounces a year once we get to full production. The ramp up, we started our first ore production in May. We expect our first sales of concentrate to happen very soon, very shortly. We will press release that, by the way. And then we are ramping up towards, actually I may have a slide about this. We're ramping up towards 100 tons by the end of the year. That would be the phase 3 of this development here. And then 350 by middle of next year. To get to the phase 3 there, we just have to have production in the 3 different big vein systems that we have on the property that are all parallel to each other. Phase 2 was really just starting production, so we achieved that in May. And then when we look at next year, 2025, we're going to start to put more mechanized equipment underground. And that will help us sort of jump production from 100 to 350 tons per day. And it'll take us 6 months or so to implement all that. All right. Now, before I finish on Bethania, I want to talk about the exploration potential because it's really extraordinary. And if you think about, go back to that valuation slide I put on earlier, if you want to think about why a company trades at 30 or 40 times EBITDA versus 10, it's because of growth, and we can deliver that growth. So here's the mine property again. Our entire resource sits in 15 hectares of this 4,300 hectare land package. So we're talking about 1/300th of the property is where our current 15 million ounce or 14 and change million ounce resource is. And it's open at depth. It's going to go deeper. That's without any more area. Going back to this one, we started to go around the property to some old historic or artisanal mines that we knew about. And we go there first as an exploration model. And one of the ones that we went to just this year was called Tito. So that's the one directly south of the mine. And although we like some of our other targets, this one just blew us away, how good it was. And it's been sitting there the whole time. We've had this property since 2021. And finally, we got around to getting there with a geologist team to map it and sample it in early 2024. And the vein system here is longer than Bethania in terms of the length. That's about 640 meters with where all those circles are. So that's longer than the strike length of Bethania, the entire Bethania mine right now. Then you've got these other veins that are close to it as well. This is just what we could sample at surface. We didn't do any digging. We didn't do any drilling. We didn't have that equipment. This was a first pass. But in addition to the large size of this area, of this system, this vein system, the consistency of the grades here is something we've never seen on any of the other zones of the property, including Bethania, where every third sample we're taking along the length of the vein, we're getting over 1,000 grams per ton silver. Yeah, so I think 13 or 12, sorry, out of 39 samples that we took, so roughly a third of them were over 1,000 grams and several were over 2,000. And the average grade of our mine is 450. So these are double or more the grade of our mine, and we're picking them up very consistently here, which looks really, really good in terms of the potential for drilling this at depth and what kind of grades this area might have. However, not to be left out, we have two other zones that we've discovered, Carmelitas Main, Carmelitas Norte. This is in a property package we acquired a few years ago from a private Peruvian guy. And this is, just west of the mine here, you can see. And so there's two separate zones, both of which have, some small holes in the side of a hill where some mining took place. We went and did more sort of modern systematic sampling, and we found very extensive vein systems at both sites. If you stack them back to back, they give you almost the same size as the Bethania property, which if you include the hilltop zone to the east, which we haven't drilled yet, you've got about over a kilometer, 1.1 kilometers of strike length there. This is about the same size. So this could be, between the two of them, this could be another Bethania. Tito could be another Bethania. So we might have, potentially 3 Bethania systems, just what we've explored to date, let alone all the rest of the property that we haven't touched yet. So now, how does this matter when we talk about making money? We plan to that square that's right below the Bethania mine where all the veins are there. That's where we're permitted to build a mill. So we went through the process several years ago to get all the permits in Peru. Not easy thing to do, but we did it. We've got a great permitting team. We are permitted to build a mill on that site. We decided not to do it yet because there's other mills in the area that basically do the same thing, and we thought, well, we could truck to them. It's going to cost a little bit more, but it saves us a lot, millions of dollars of capital up front. And so we decided to do that. And then once we start making more money from the mine, we can put some of that money aside and build that mill. And that is the plan. Then once we build it, then we're going to want to expand it. As soon as we build that mill, we're going to start putting in the permit applications to expand it. And I think we'll end up doubling or tripling the size of that mill. And where's the ore going to come from? It's going to come from all these other zones, as well as making Bethania bigger. We've got potentially four other mines that we've discovered already. So this is something that could go from 1.5 million ounces a year to 4 or 5 million ounces of silver a year, plus all the byproducts. And that would make it one of the bigger silver mines, definitely in Peru, let alone the Americas. All right, let's finish up with our property in Canada. It's nice to have a property in Canada. And although this one's not as advanced, but it is looking really good. We through several acquisitions, we consolidated 13,000 hectares of land. It's just south of the town of Cobalt, Ontario. It's a historic mining district. Silver was found there by settlers in the early 1900s, around 1903, 1904. And within less than 10 years, it was one of the biggest silver mining districts in the whole world. In 1911, this area produced over 30 million ounces of silver in 1 year. So, and it kept producing until the 80s. It got consolidated by several bigger companies, including Agnico Eagle, started their company in this area. So, so it's very well known in Canada, not so well known outside of Canada because it's been really dormant for the last 40 years, since the 80s. So and then it kind of got a little bit of a life when the critical minerals cobalt thing happened, because there is cobalt everywhere, all over the place here. And it is definitely a byproduct or co-product of the silver mining, depending on the relative prices of the metals. The cobalt here is important, and we use it not only as an economic metal in and of itself, but it's a great pathfinder to the silver, because usually if you drill into cobalt, you're very close to the silver. If not, you're there. So we kind of see them essentially as the same thing, although we we love seeing the high grade silver in this area. It's spectacular. So we went in, we had, obviously it's a huge land package. So we decided, where do we focus first? We decided to focus on the northern area where we had the most data from some of our previous operators. In this area here, we've got about just under 1,000 hectares. So it's less than 10% of our property package, but 60, 70 million ounces historically mined from this area. And, it's very close to the town. The town of Cobalt's actually just up in the top left-hand corner there. So we're relatively close to the town where the most of the mining took place. Now, if we look at our discovery here, we made a big discovery last year. People always ask, how did we do it? We drilled through 200 meters of barren rock, and we hit 3.3 meters, so about 10 feet of 15,000 grams per ton. That's 1.5% silver. The core is spectacular. If you ever see us at a show like the PDAC or anything like that, we might have the core with us. It's spectacular core. You should really see it in person. It's got native silver, so basically silver metal in rock, and it's extraordinary. We hit that, drilling through 200 meters of barren rock. How we decided to drill there was we figured that in this area where there's all this cover, we wanted to look for structures that are underneath that cover that might host the silver, especially on these contacts between two different rock units. So we targeted between the orange and the green, in this case, that contact with some structures that we could see on surface. The structures are barren. They have a little bit of cobalt, so a little bit of a hint that there might be something there. And we drilled those, and that's where we made our discovery. So we're now drilling out a zone there. Here's that same zone now looking down. We've actually found several different veins that all intersect with each other. And that's exactly what you'd expect to see. That's a very typical Cobalt Ontario style deposit. A bunch of veins that kind of cluster together, and they're close enough together you can go underground and mine them as a unit. And that's how many of the historic mines evolved in the cobalt camp. It's just they tended to be closer to surface, where you could find the silver right at surface and then go underground. Those mines are all gone. They're found. That's easy. The easy prospecting's already done, but we've figured out a method here where we can repeat this type of results on our property and get this type, and make more discoveries like this. In fact, we might have made a second one just off to the left here on this air geode property, the blue property. We drilled a big step out hole, and we hit 249 grams per ton silver and 1.6% cobalt. So more of a cobalt rich hole, but that again tells us that we're probably very close to the silver there. So that was a new discovery we did just towards the end of last year, early this year. All right, so to wrap it up, we've got two projects on, this is the Lassonde Curve. So this is a very famous chart, which is more than 25 years old, I think, goes back to the late 90s. But with the famous mining billionaire Pierre Lassonde created this to kind of show how in the life cycle of a mine, there's certain times that are better times to own a project and certain times that are not so good. And we're at the right time. Bethania is going into production when all the financing risk gets removed. As soon as you go from being essentially cash flow or cash sucking to cash flow positive, that's when the most value is created. And we're right on the precipice of doing that at Bethania. And then the other time when you make a lot of money in mining is when there's a new discovery, and that discovery starts getting recognized. You start to sort of put some flesh on the bone. So it's more than one drill hole. There's actually potentially an economic deposit there. So it's not one press release. It's a process that can take a few years, and we're doing that with Silver Kings as well. So we've got two projects that are both positioned to create a lot of value for our shareholders. All right, we've got about just over 100 million shares outstanding, so that gives us about a 40 million, 35 million Canadian market cap. So that would be about 25-ish US, I guess. And high management ownership. I'm the biggest shareholder, so I'm aligned with shareholders. We've got actually Richard mentioned follow the successful investors. We've got Eric Sprott as one of our shareholders as well. He was an early supporter of the company. So there you go. management team, board. I won't bore you with them. They're all great, of course. Everyone says that, and that's it. So follow us and let me know if you have any questions.
We do have just a couple minutes now for questions from the audience.
A couple of questions. Thank you for that. In your district that you've created in Peru, there's a large rectangle next to Bethania. Who owns that, and what is there a plan to get a hold of that?
So the majority of there's two small owners. That's less than 300 hectares, so it's a very small area. Most of it's actually staked by Fresnillo. My personal opinion is that it's actually too small for Fresnillo. They can't fit a big, giant, disseminated gold deposit or a porphyry copper deposit in that small of an area. So I think if they are serious about exploring there, they're gonna one day want to work with us. But we have so much other area right now to explore. It's honestly not a huge priority. But I think in the end, Bethania is the center of gravity for that district, where there's already a mine, where we're permitted to build a mill. So I think it will all come to us one day.
Second question: can you talk to the deal with Trafi a little bit? Have you kept your offtake price?
No, we offtake at market price. They just want to make sure that we don't sell to someone else. Is the bottom line. They have a strong leadership position in Peru, in particular, in the metals trading market, we developed a relationship with them over many years, and so far they've been great partners. And as I said, they came in as equity investors, not lenders, which was also another kind of bonus. That's kind of what set them apart with some of the other offtake trading companies that were out there, is that they were willing to do that, and some other companies were not. So yeah, we're very very happy to be working with them.
Thank you.
Yes, Trafigura and Sprott, are they locked up for a certain amount of time?
Trafigura is just because it's a recent deal. We did get them to agree to some lockup terms. They did the deal in 2 tranches, so I think they're still locked up towards the end of this year. With Eric Sprott, he did the majority of his investing several years ago, so there's no lockup.
Sorry, can you talk about the life of mine? Did you mention that?
So right now, with our 14 million ounce resource in our PEA, the PEA that we put out, that gave us a 7-year mine life. At the current rate of 350 tons per day that we're ramping up to, we expect to be there 20, 30 years from now, because we're going to continue to explore and expand. But as it stands today, in the strict sense, 7 years.
Thank you.
You have a very high number for the cobalt. What are you going to do with that?
So at the Silver Kings project, the cobalt and the silver occur in the same veins. And what we're seeing as we learn more about this deposit is there seems to be a core which is more silver rich, and then the extremities, as you go further away from that core, it becomes more cobalt rich. And so there'll be maybe a zone in the middle where it's like 50-50, and then there's going to be a zone that's dominated by cobalt. When you actually then put your mining engineering hat on and look at how to model that, it all becomes one mining block, and you have to mine them both together. Then when you're processing, you can separate them. So the silver will come out first, essentially we'll be able to pour silver bars at site, because it's actually just metallic silver that we have in the ore. And then the cobalt will be going to a concentrate. So similar to what we do in Peru, where we produce these very rich metal concentrates, we would have a cobalt concentrate in Ontario.
Right, David, I think that's it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks everyone.